All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Andre Duke Show. Coming to you early this Saturday morning. We're also going to be live later today. Going to do a watch party for the Tennessee Alabama game. A little, uh, a little college basketball. What's up, my guy? What's going on? Glad to see that you're popped in. Sorry, we took a couple of days off from the normal schedule. I thought we hit it hard in the last month, so appreciate all of you guys that are new and that have hit the like and if I could speak this morning, like and subscribe button. That also helps us a ton. But going to go over some of the topics that Yep, go Hoosiers. The Indiana Hoosiers are national champs. I believe the parade is today. Not going to be able to make it to that. Kind of stinks, but it is what it is. But we took a couple of days off. I figured we'd come back strong on this Saturday. Typically, we are off on Sundays, so we'll be back Monday. Also, you're going to get 2 shows on Monday. If everything holds up, a good friend of mine, somebody that I follow, Chase Parham, an Ole Miss beat writer from Rebels 247, is going to be joining the podcast with baseball season coming up. He is their baseball beat writer, so we'll have Chase on to discuss a myriad of topics. That'll be Monday at 5 o'clock. So whenever you see the post about Monday at 5, don't worry, we're going to be coming back Monday night as well after that interview concludes, coming back with the normal show. So there is that. But I guess since while we're here, it's all over ESPN, and I didn't think that it would be fitting not to talk about it, but we'll get into it. Clemson and Ole Miss, basically Dabo Swinney, Pete Golding, probably going to be jockeying back and forth over the Cal linebacker. Very, very interesting dynamic there, kind of, in my opinion. The kid gets in the portal, goes to Clemson, signs a scholarship with Clemson, and then re-enters the portal and goes to Ole Miss. Now, somebody turned over from Dabo's press conference, someone had turned over information on Pete Golding texting the kid. He had known that Jackson Dart called him, which I don't think that's a big deal because Jackson Dart doesn't go to Ole Miss anymore. Now, Trinidad Chambliss, that could be an issue. But then again, Trinidad Chambliss's eligibility still in question. The NCAA, I believe, officially denied the appeal request. Probably, I think that's safe to say, so it's going to go to court. I don't see how Chambliss does not win that. But also, if you're new here, do us the biggest favor, hit that like and subscribe button and turn on those bell notifications. So there is that. So we'll get into this. My thoughts on the Dabo Swinney thing. This is gonna irritate some people because I'm gonna talk out of both sides of my mouth on this one. Now, I totally get why Dabo is mad. I totally get it because the kid commits to you and signs the scholarship agreement, commits, signs the scholarship agreement, and then, some hours later hops in the portal and takes off. That's an issue. Dabo said that Ole Miss offered him $2 million for 2 years. That's probably more than what Clemson had offered him. And then also, this is a cautionary tale of the Miami defensive back. I know it's going to seem like I'm picking on Miami here, but this would be the Xavier Johnson thing. To me, he proved that the transfer portal technically doesn't exist in a roundabout way, because I don't believe That's just like the QB going from Duke to Miami. Well, see, what makes that different is the Duke quarterback. Yeah, Duke is suing him. I don't think that's going to end well for Duke, but I have my own thoughts on that. But if the NCAA can't enforce the transfer portal correctly, I don't see how it's going to enforce the revenue sharing thing. And even if he does have to pay the $2 million back, Miami's just going to pay it. They'll say, "Well, we still got him, so we'll just pay the money. There's your money back to your rev share," which it's going to be kind of moot because Manny Diaz is going to be without a quarterback. But back to the Clemson thing. Now, the alarming issue that I have with this is that I don't know how it's $8 million is what he'd have to owe. Well, I think they're trying to give him $10 million for 1 year, so I think Miami will shake the trees and all the money will fall out. And plus, I think it's a terrible look. Although, do I think he should honor his contract? Yeah, there should be a buyout there. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I believe the school that you leave should get compensated somehow if they have you under contract and you decide to leave. I firmly believe that. Now, with that being said, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth on this. Now, the issue I have is how did Dabo get all the information? Did the kid turn it over to him about the Pete Golding stuff? I would only assume so. That's the only thing I can think of, unless the kid or the agent did that. And I think it's very interesting and fascinating on this front that the kid in question is represented by Athletes First, which is basically the second biggest, one of the top 3 agencies representing athletes. Now, where I'm going with this is Dabo Swinney's a CAA client, which I think that matters. You know who also is a CAA client? Lane Kiffin. So I don't know. I don't know if this, I'm not accusing, but I just think it's awfully suspicious. Dabo hardly ever, when it came to the portal, would ever name names. And then all of a sudden, as soon as the portal's closed, he decides to name names. And the only reason I bring that up is because do I think the kid was right in doing what he was doing? No. I think it was what it was. But at the end of the day, Dabo did come out and say that, you know, it is the adults in the room failing the kids on this system. I totally agree with that. Do I think that they could have came up with a better system than what they have? Yeah. The problem comes in the Xavier Johnson issue when he was up and able to transfer from Wisconsin to Miami after signing a rev share deal, and I believe it was a multi-year deal. I think Miami, for the most part, just said, "Hey, Wisconsin, here's a couple shekels, go away." And that's just kind of what it was. They did not you didn't hear about it anymore. Now, I believe the Jalen Rashada thing is still ongoing, whatever he's trying to do with Florida. I think that's an absolute, I think that'll get thrown out eventually. I don't think they're going to owe him anything. He couldn't win the job at Sac State, and he didn't play at Georgia. It's the money that's ruining college football, and it's getting out of hand. Now, here's where I will agree to kind of disagree. I believe the athletes should get compensated for what they do. They should. But also, at the end of the day, if they would have had this system 15 years ago, what would have college football looked like? I bet it would look pretty similar, in my opinion. I think it would, because you didn't have immediate eligibility. I think the way to fix the immediate eligibility thing is it's very simple. You get a one-time transfer. But I also think there should be a one-time transfer caveat on that, because let's say you're at Kentucky and you go to Kentucky and you don't play at all. Well, if you go to Bowling Green and you do well, I think if you go down a level, which it would help if there was a break off, but I think if you would go down a level, they should get paid, but all players get paid equally. Yeah, but I agree to disagree with that, because I don't think you can pay the starting quarterback the same as the backup left tackle. That's just my opinion. The way I look at it, because I believe their market value, their marketability is so much better. Oh, sorry about that, but it's just one of those deals. Sorry about that. I got distracted there for a minute, but but yeah, so that's kind of where we're at on the Clemson thing. Now, do I think it was? I think it's going to be interesting to see how the I don't see how the NCAA is going to enforce this, because they wash their hands when oil tycoons and billionaires and owner businesses are dishing out money. Yeah, that is true. It to me, what Texas Tech is doing is very fascinating. Also, I think it's going to be studied, because they pretty much bought and paid for that team, and they put up 3 points or no points in the playoffs. I mean, they got boat raced by Oregon. So um so there's that. That's just like Dave Portnoy paying $10 million for the Underwood quarterback. Well, the Underwood thing is more Larry Adelson, you know, throwing up a ton of money into Michigan. I think that's kind of what it is. The power boosters are throwing a ton of money at it, and I mean, I think it's very fascinating that they were able to keep Underwood after the coaching change and that whole fiasco. And I don't even want to get into that. Very bizarre turn of events up there at Michigan on how that whole thing shook out. But I'm sure Wisconsin got a check for the Xavier Johnson kid. I'm sure somebody got compensated somewhere. But the bigger thing that fascinates me is, how did Dabo get his hands on the correspondence between Pete Golding and the Luke Fernelli, the linebacker? I think that there's a lot to be said there. I think there's more to that story than what was said. Obviously, I'm sure Pete will come out and address it. I don't typically the best the best media, the best PR advice is just don't talk about it. So I'm sure he'll get asked at the press conference whenever he has I'm sure that so there's that. But sorry, I was looking something up. I was trying to find if the Xavier Johnson case was still in court. I don't know. I would have to do some more digging, but I seen the Dabo stuff that was leading the headlines. It was dominating the headlines, so I thought I would hop on here and we would talk about it. So I think in other news, I guess we'll see where this whole Dabo Sweeney and Pete Golding thing shakes out. But remember, I agree with both sides. The kid should not have done what he done. But also, I don't know how you stop him, because if you stop him and he sues you, what if he wins? That's the big thing. What if he wins? So there is kind of that in a nutshell, and then we'll briefly go over the Jay Billis thing. Jay Billis, which I was shocked that he took this stance, because he was Mr. Anti-court storming. But Jay Billis basically in an interview, I believe it was, I don't know if it was on McAfee, but it was on something ESPN. Jay Billis called out Lane Kiffin about, if the coaches have no loyalty, then why should the players, basically in a generalization. I'm really shocked that Jay Billis took that stance on that. The Kiffin stuff was a kind of a one in a million. I don't think we'll ever see anything as bizarre as the last month that went on at Ole Miss. I don't think we'll ever see anything like that again, to be 100% honest. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. Also in some other news, some TV numbers for the college football playoff. ESPN PR put this out. The 31.1 million viewers on average for the national championship. It got to as high as 33.2 million at its peak. It's the second most watched college football title game, second best cable telecast ever. Lane Kiffin took the bag. Yeah, Lane did take the bag. That is true. And then most viewed non-NFL sport since 2016, Game 7 of the World Series, which had the Cubs in it. So there is that. But I think that ESPN cleaned up. I think there was a lot of people out there that were kind of skeptical about, will the Indiana fans show up? Will the Indiana fans watch? I think that shows more than anything that Indiana stepped up to the plate and delivered. And plus, I think there was a lot of, college football. I mean, that's pretty much an NFL number for the most part when it comes to TV viewership. The NFL, I think, averages like almost 35 million per game. It's anywhere from 32 to 35. So they pulled a big number. And I also think it pulled a big number because it didn't have the same characters in there. It was two new teams. He also went to a school where recruiting is in a nice hot spot. Yeah, Lane did. He set himself up. And my thing is on the Lane Kiffin thing, give it a little time until he gets a combative press conference, because I don't I don't know. Basically, my thing is that Lane, because the Hoosiers showed up, yeah, I hear that. Basically, my thing on Lane Kiffin at LSU, he's got to win. Like, there is no there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So that's kind of where I'm at on the Kiffin stuff. Also, in other news, I guess USC is expected to hire Gary Patterson as their defensive coordinator, and I think for everything that had gone on at USC on the defensive side of it, it's going to be interesting at USC to see if he can flip that thing around. Yep, if he's not going to be out the door like Brian Kelly. See, when people that watch, that are diehard college football people that pay attention to it and watch it a lot, and watch press conferences and watch kind of the dynamics and read Twitter and read what the fans are saying, I think in this day and age in college football, you have more athletic directors reading Twitter than ever before. 10 years ago, not so much. Now, yes, they are reading Twitter. They are reading what people are saying. They are reading the comments. They can all sit there and say, oh, I don't read the comments. I don't pay attention to that. Well, Brian Kelly was having combative press conferences when he was winning games. And they're paying Kiffin a boatload of money. I think they're paying Kiffin more than they're paying Brian Kelly. So we'll see how the whole thing shakes out. But also, in other news, Kirk Cignetti, at the end of it here, by the end of the year, he's going to end up clearing $17.2 million for the year with the new contract. Some of his bonuses, he earned $150K for 6 Big Ten wins, $1 million for the Big Ten title, $600K for a college football semifinal or a quarterfinal, $700K for a college football semifinal. He got $1 million for making it to the Big Ten title game, $50K for Big Ten Coach of the Year, $100K for National Coach of the Year, and then he got $2 million for winning the national championship, coming to a grand total for $17.2 million. Kirk Cignetti, take a bow, my friend. You earned that. But that's a heck of a plan when it comes together. So, also on some more Indiana news, 2026 they won 3 bowl games in their entire history leading up to the game. They had won the 1979 Holiday Bowl, the 1988 Liberty Bowl, and the 1991 Copper Bowl was the last bowl game they won. So in my lifetime, they never won a bowl game. So there is that. And also, against AP top 10 opponents this year, Indiana was 6-0. They beat Illinois, that was ranked 9th at the time. They beat Oregon, number 3. Ohio State, number 1 in the Big Ten Championship. Alabama, number 9. Oregon again at number 5. And Miami at number 10. Also, speaking of Wisconsin, I seen this the other day. They were looking at the final coaches poll, which I find it interesting that well, I guess that's via Pete Nakos, just now breaking, Jordan Seaton has officially signed with LSU. Also, a lot of videos that have been resurfacing, a lot of people getting on Paul Feinbaum from, this was a question on 10/17 of this year. Stephen A. Smith asked, this is via Awful Announcing, Stephen A. Smith asked, did Indiana make the right move with Cignetti? And that was his 8-year, $93 million contract extension. Paul Feinbaum says they did not. I'm still not convinced that Kirk Cignetti is one of the top coaches in America. That is what Paul Feinbaum said. And then Wisconsin head coach Luke Fickell on the hot seat. There's two parts to that. I say yes. The people at Wisconsin say no. Their athletic director, after the season, came out and said, we screwed this up. We didn't give him. I think Wisconsin was one of the very schools that did not think this rev share NIL thing was going to matter. And I don't think they invested in it heavily. I think they were kind of like, oh, well, we got the W on the helmet, and it'll move the needle, and it didn't. So I think that's why Wisconsin kind of fell apart, and it's just one of very interesting deals out there. Wisconsin kind of fell victim to that, and the other school that I think that could pony up and make big, that has big money, they just don't spend it, is Iowa. Iowa, Nebraska, they all have money. They just don't. A lot of kids, I think it's hard for some of the old leadership at some of those universities to stomach shelling out big dollars for kids. But at the end of the day, Indiana beat you to a natty. That's all I can say. And then also on the Carson Beck thing, I know everybody wanted to talk about how old Indiana's roster was and the kids that they brought in, right? We'll go down this path. The only thing I really have to say about that is that was Indiana's roster a little bit older? Yeah. I seen Rod Parker railing at it and said they beat the system, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Here's the deal, though. All those kids were in the portal, and they were available to you. You just didn't get them. So whose fault is that? They just used the system that's in place. It's like I said with the College Football Playoff Committee. They used the system that is in place. But I digress. Moving on. In the last 4 losses for Carson Beck, the final play was an interception. That has got to be tough. It's got to be a tough one to wrap your head around. And then they rank the Saban coaching tree here, and it's got Cignetti number 1. He's got a natty. Kirby's got 2 natties. Jimbo, and this is Bet MGM that put this together. Jimbo not currently employed, which I'm kind of shocked. I would have thought Jimbo would have got a job somewhere, but he didn't. Maybe Jimbo's done and he just wants to do the whole TV thing. But Jimbo's got a national championship. Him and Jameis got there. Mario Cristobal, no natty. Dan Lanning, no natty. Lane Kiffin, no natty. Steve Sarkisian, no natty. Brett Key, no natty. Pete Golding, no natty. And Jim McElwain. I think McElwain's done. Here's this. You know what's funny? You get beat by Indiana, a team who had 3 stars and 2 stars compared to all the other 4 and 5 stars. Oh, I totally agree with that. It's all about roster development, roster retention, because I think Indiana spent a lot of money on roster retention. That's just my opinion. Some people may agree to disagree with that, but I think they spent big money on that. And one of the more wild things that I had seen over the weekend, or the time that we were off, was I totally forgot about this at the beginning of the year. Fernando Mendoza was a 3-star QB. Yeah. And Miami didn't offer him. Manny Diaz didn't offer him. And when he went in the portal, I think he said Miami got in late, but the Indiana deal was already done. So it's just kind of kind of that. So it just really didn't work out. And I seen College Sports Only put this together. I totally forgot about this at the beginning of the season. It said a season that started with Avery Johnson's family fighting in a puddle in Ireland goes to Mrs. Danger crying on camera, which ESPN's diabolical for putting her on the screen. I'm just throwing it out there. I think they were diabolical for that one. And also, in other news, another fun fact, the college football national championship next year, tomorrow, it's going to be 1 year away. I don't know what their thinking is with this. It's going to be January 25th of next year is when the college football playoff national championship is going to be. I would say I have a major issue of that, but I mean, I don't think they care is the big thing. I really don't think they care. They're just going to keep pushing it back and pushing it back. Because now you're going to be, depending on the way the schools work, or when they go back to class, you're going to have classes started and you're going to have kids enroll if their team makes it to the Natty and they want to transfer, because I believe you have 7 days after your final game to transfer. I believe you have a 7-day window to make a decision. So there is kind of that. Also, Fernando Mendoza's brother transfers out of Indiana. I don't think that's a big deal. Some people think that that's a big deal. I don't think it's a big deal because I don't think Alberto was going to play. They brought in Josh Hoover from TCU, so I think that's gonna be the big selling point there. But also, when we look at the revisionist history, if you go back to the where they had the transfer, I'm surprised he didn't go out to the West Coast to Las Vegas. Well, I think Georgia Tech, I kind of think that deal might have been done for a while. I think that's something that a lot of folks looking at it don't realize, because when all of this comes about, that the deal was done prior to the kid getting into the portal. So I think a lot of people want to look the other way when it comes to that. And then also the last graphic I had, Indiana was ranked last in the Big Ten on talent composite. They were ranked 72nd nationally in talent, below teams like Boston College, UTSA, Oregon State, UNLV, and Oklahoma State. They were the worst. They were rated the worst roster in the Big Ten by, I believe that's on 3. In the Big Ten, they had Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Michigan, USC, Nebraska, UCLA, Wisconsin, Washington, Michigan State, Minnesota, Iowa, Maryland, Rutgers, Purdue, Northwestern, Illinois, Indiana. So that just goes to show you the talent composite and all that stuff like that. So that's kind of where we are at for today. Also, we'll be back tonight. Alabama, Tennessee watch party for basketball, if anybody's interested in that. Like I said, Monday we will have Chase Parham on, with the weather permitting, as long as everybody has power down there. Hopefully everybody down there in Oxford is doing okay. Also, the portal numbers for Cignetti are also going down big time. First year Cignetti took over 31 transfers. Last year, going into year 2, 23 transfers, and then this year, only 17 transfers. So it seems like this guy's got something figured out. Some people argue that, but we'll see. Also, the Indiana defense holding Miami's offense to only 69 first half yards. So I think there's something to be said there. I think it was a heck of a performance on Indiana's side of the ball defensively. They shut Miami down for a quarter, and that's how that is. I sent you 2 pictures on the Notre Dame video. All right, I'll check that out after I get done here. Also, we'll do a post-game call-in show, so if you're an Alabama or Tennessee fan and want to voice your displeasure with your basketball teams, I will also be here for that. And I think that's pretty much all she wrote for this morning. So, one last thing. The jersey patches, I guess, got approved. I don't know 100% on that. I haven't read enough about it. I think it's just going to be like the NBA. You're going to have a patch up on the jersey that's going to say like Circle K or something like that. Now, there's going to be fan bases that I think you'll get a compromise with some universities. Like, I don't think at Alabama they're going to let them change the jersey. I just don't think so. I think they'll come up with an alternate solution because I think there's some universities that aren't. They'll want the money, but I don't think they're going to. I don't think they'll change the uniform themselves with a patch sewn on there. Because, I mean, there's enough people that complain about the CFP patches. So there is kind of that. But I will say, appreciate everybody who has hopped on this morning, a little impromptu. Figured we get out in front of the Dabo, Pete Golding, round 1. I believe Dabo is kind of in the lead. He is the new Nick Saban. Well, we'll see. But there's that. But yeah, appreciate everybody who tuned in this morning. Google me, I win. Yeah, that is a huge part of it. So appreciate everybody who's tuned in. Do us the biggest favor and smash that like and subscribe button and help us get kicked up in the algorithm. So with that being said, we will see you back here later tonight. I believe that game starts at 8, but I will have the stream posted, and also we'll do the post-game call-in show, talk a little hoops, since we're gonna kind of transition into a little basketball stuff, but it's still gonna be football heavy, but just some topical stuff, maybe change it up a bit. So there's that. I appreciate everybody, and we will be back. Tonight, this evening, as long as we got everything good. Football jersey looking like Yellow Pages. I hope not. That is something that I do not want to see. Even though I like NASCAR, I don't want to see football jerseys looking like NASCAR. Now, I think if they do something subtle, kind of like what Boston did with the Pacers did with Eli Lilly, you can barely tell it's there. So maybe they'll do it right, because I know the fan bases will lose their mind if they don't. People will freak out. That is a fact. So we'll see where it takes us. Have to see some renderings and what it looks like. I'm just hoping it's not something like a green and white Subway patch on the University of Arkansas's jersey. That just won't look right. So, all right. So with that, I ain't got nothing else at the moment. So we will talk to you guys later on tonight. Everybody have a good day, and we'll see you later.